What would you trade to never be poor again? Would you trade your peace, your sleep, your unborn child? This is the story of a man who did. He walked into a secret room, spoke no words, and came out rich. Okoye was a young, vibrant man with big dreams. He had spent 6 long years serving under his boss in Lagos, learning the trade, enduring the struggles, and waiting patiently for the day he would be settled to start his own business. When that day finally came, his boss handed him a settlement package and told him, "Okoye, you are a good boy. Go and make something out of your life." But there was a twist. Instead of staying in Lagos, where he already knew the market, his boss sent him down to Onitsha to start afresh. Okoye and his people didn't argue. His people saw it as a fresh opportunity and a new beginning. Life in Onitsha was different. The market was tougher, competition was fierce, and customers seemed harder to please. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Okoye's little capital began to shrink. He struggled to keep up with the market, often returning home with unsold goods. Sometimes, Okoye would sit in front of a shop from morning to night and not sell even one item. Rent was due, suppliers were calling, feeding became a problem. He was ashamed to return to the village empty-handed. He remembered his mother's weak voice over the phone, asking, "My son, how is the business?" He would smile and lie, "Mama, we thank God. Things are moving." But things were not moving. One morning, with sadness in his heart, Okoye traveled back to Lagos where his boss had his main shop. He hoped that the man who trained him would help him again. He waited outside for hours before he was allowed in. "Good morning, sir," Okoye greeted, kneeling as tradition demanded. The man barely looked at him. "What brings you here, Okoye?" he asked, already sounding tired. Okoye knelt and explained everything, how the business failed, how he was in debt, and how his family was suffering. "Please, sir, help me again. Give me small money to restart. I will pay you back," he begged. The man shook his head. "Okoye, I have done my part. You were settled. I owe you nothing more. If your business failed, that's your own cross. Stand up and go." Okoye's heart broke into pieces. That evening, Okoye walked out of his boss house with his head hanging low. The Lagos sun was setting, casting long shadow on the street, but none felt longer than the shadow of disappointment in his heart. He had gone there with hope, believing his old master would lend him a helping hand, but instead, he left with nothing except a bitter reminder that this life he was truly on his own. But business couldn't wait for self-pity. That evening, he decided to go to the Lagos Street Fair Market to buy goods for his shop in Onitsha with the little money he had left. As he walked around, checking prices and begging traders for better offers, someone called his name. "Okoye, is this you?" He turned. Standing in front of him was a man dressed in all white. His wristwatch alone looked more expensive than Okoye's whole shop. His skin glowed, his chain shined, his belly looked like someone who ate money every morning. "Amadi," Okoye shouted, shocked. They hugged tightly. Amadi laughed. "My guy, Look at you. Long time. What happened to your cheeks? You have dried like ogbono leaf. Okoye smiled sadly. It's a long story, my brother. They sat at a nearby restaurant. Amadi ordered chicken and rice for them. Okoye ate like someone who hadn't seen meat in months. And truly, he hadn't. Then he spoke. Business crashed 6 months after I was settled. I'm just tired, Amadi. Nothing is working. I came to Lagos to see if I can buy small goods and try again. Amadi nodded and wiped his mouth. I understand. I also suffered when I started. In fact, mine was worse. After my settlement, everything I touched turned to dust. I almost ran mad, he said. Okoye raised his head. So, how come you are now like this? Which man? Big boy. Amadi smiled a strange smile. He looked around, leaned in and said softly, my brother, I found the truth. Our boss, Chief Nnamani, is an occult man. The money he settles us with is not clean. He disappears after some time. My parents took me to a spiritual man. That is where I knew the truth. Okoye's mouth opened wide. Are you serious? He whispered. Yes, Amadi nodded. He gives you money, but behind it, he has tied your hands. You can't succeed unless you find another power to fight back. Okoye was quiet. Amadi continued. That's what I did. I joined the winning side. Now, look at me. Life is war, my brother, he said. You are either for God or for the devil. I took the easier road, the faster road. If you have the mind, I will link you up. Okoye didn't speak. He looked at Amadi, then at his car key, then at himself. It was a decision that would change his life forever. That night, Okoye couldn't sleep. He lay on the small mattress in Amadi's guest room, staring at the ceiling. The air conditioner blew cold air, but his chest was burning with thought. So, this was true. Chief Nnamani, the man who fed him, trained him, and settled him, was part of a dark world. He remembered how people used to fear Chief Nnamani. The man never joked with his white beads, red clothes, and midnight meetings. But Okoye had thought it was just culture. Now, it all made sense. Amadi knocked and entered the room, holding 2 bottles of water. My guy, are you alright? Okoye sat up. I'm just thinking. Amadi laughed and sat beside him. Don't think too much. That's how I almost entered depression. Let me tell you something Chief Nnamani told me before I left. He paused. That day I was about to leave his shop. He looked me in the eyes and said, you will see money, but it won't stay. If you want real riches, find the source. At that time, I thought he was blessing me. I didn't know he was mocking me. Okoye swallowed hard. He gave us money, Amadi continued, but tied our roots. He's not just a businessman. He belongs to a secret society. They give wealth in exchange for power. But when you leave, you must connect to another source or you are finished. Okoye bent his head. So, what did you do, Amadi? Amadi looked at him with serious eyes. I joined a cult, he whispered. A group of men who control wealth. They don't work with prayers or church. They work with blood, silence and rules. Since then, my life changed. Okoye's voice was shaking. But, but isn't that dangerous? Everything in life is dangerous, my brother. Amadi replied, "Poverty is dangerous, my brother. Look at you. You have not eaten well in days. You are walking around with slippers that touch to the ground. You are too good for this kind of suffering." He placed a hand on Okoye's shoulder. "If you have the mind, if you can keep secrets, I will introduce you to them." Okoye stared into space. He thought of his poor parents, his two sisters who were not yet in school. He thought of hunger, shame, rejection. He looked at Amadi's soft skin and gold necklace. Finally, with a shaky voice, he asked, "What will it cost?" Amadi stood up slowly. "The devil doesn't take everything at once," he said, "but he always takes something." 3 days passed. Okoye remained in Amadi's mansion, eating good food, wearing clean clothes, and sleeping on a soft bed. But inside his heart, a storm was brewing. Every night, he replayed Amadi's words. "The devil doesn't take everything at once, but he always takes something." On the fourth night, Okoye sat outside on the balcony. The sky was dark. Lagos light twinkled below. Amadi came out with 2 glasses of juice. "You still dey think?" Amadi asked, sitting beside him. Okoye nodded slowly. "I want to do it." Amadi looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure?" "I'm tired of this life. I'm tired of begging. I'm tired of shame. If this is the only way, then I want to do it." Okoye replied, his eyes sharp with pain. Amadi smiled faintly. "All right, but no turning back. Once you enter, you don't cry. No regrets. Are you ready to pay the price?" Okoye didn't answer. That same night, around 1 a.m., they entered a tinted black SUV. They drove for nearly an hour before they arrived at a large compound hidden deep inside the forest. The gate opened slowly on its own. Okoye felt cold all over his body. The building was old, quiet, and surrounded by statues of snakes and strange creatures. Inside, everything was dark, except for a red flame at the center. A tall man in a black robe came out. His face was covered. He said no greetings. He looked at Okoye and spoke in a deep voice. "You want wealth, but what will you give in return?" Okoye froze. The man pointed to a large mirror. "Look at your future." Inside the mirror, Okoye saw himself in expensive suits, holding bundles of money, standing in front of a mansion, cars, fame, power. Then the image changed. He saw a crying baby disappear in smoke, a pregnant woman wailing in pain, a childless home, a cold, empty house. "What does it mean?" Okoye asked, scared. The man in the robe spoke again. "You will have wealth, but the price is your offspring. No child will ever call you father. No baby will cry in your house. No laughter of sons or daughters. This is the deal." Okoye turned to Amadi. "Is this how yours was?" he whispered. Amadi nodded, his face pale. "Mine was different, but we all pay somehow." Okoye closed his eyes. He remembered his mother's hunger, his father's torn shoes, his sisters who still walked long distance to fetch water, the shame in the village, the hunger in his belly. He opened his eyes. "I accept." The robed man smiled. He cut Okoye's palm with a small blade. and let the blood drip into a clay pot. "Welcome to the fold," the man said. "From today, riches will reign, but never forget, the devil never forget what you own." From the moment Okoye left the forest house, everything changed. Before, people ignored him in the market. Now, traders ran after him like flies to sugar. His account, once empty, now ran with daily alerts. When he called suppliers, they begged to deliver. His shop, once dusty and quiet, now overflowing with goods and customers. In just 6 months, Okoye became one of the most talked about businessmen in the market. He moved his business down to Lagos. He bought 2 shops, then 4. Soon, he moved into a duplex and started driving a black SUV. People whispered his name with respect and fear. Back in the village, the parents danced. They praised God, not knowing it was the devil who answered their prayers. One afternoon, as he was inspecting goods in his new warehouse, someone called his name from behind. It was Chief Nnamani, his old master, the man who trained him, the man who settled him. Okoye froze. Chief Nnamani looked older, but his eyes were still sharp. "I see you have finally made it," the chief said. Okoye forced a smile. "Yes, sir. Business has turned around." The chief laughed a strange, bitter laugh. "So, you sold your soul to the devil, eh?" Okoye looked at him without fear. "Two can play the game, sir," he replied. "I only did what you did. You gave me a cursed gift. I returned it with fire." Chief Nnamani stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "Be careful, Okoye. The devil doesn't play fair. When it's time to collect, even money will not be enough." He turned and walked away. Okoye stood still, looked at him and hissed. Okoye was no longer the boy people looked down on. He became a king in the business world. Everyone wanted to be like him. He was invited to events, praised on radio shows, and celebrated in the village. They called him the golden son of Nkanu. He started an importation business and traveled to China, Dubai, Turkey. People clapped when he entered church with large donations. The pastor gave him front row seats. Nobody asked questions. They only saw the cars, the suits, the security men, the smell of money. Soon, Okoye got married. Her name was Adora, a beautiful, respectful woman. She loved Okoye with all her heart, even though she didn't understand him fully. They had a grand wedding. People said, "This is what success looks like." But 6 months passed, then 1 year, then 2. No pregnancy. At first, they didn't worry. But after every test showed nothing was wrong with either of them, Adora began to cry at night. She would sit in the bathroom, holding her stomach and praying, "God, please give me a child, even if it's one." Okoye hearted strong in front of her, but inside it was breaking. He remembered the mirror, the price. "No child will call you father." He went to the court temple again, begging the rogue leader, "Please, give me just one child. I can give you anything else." Okoye cried, but the man shook his head. "You made your choice. The covenant is sealed. Your hands are full of unborn blood." He turned and walked away. Okoye went home and sat alone in his large living room. The AC was cold. The room was quiet. So quiet. No baby's cry. No toys. No sound of laughter. His mansion felt like a graveyard. He stared at his phone. The bank alert was flowing, but his heart was empty. He picked up a baby shoe he had brought secretly 2 years ago, just in hope. He held it to his chest, and for the first time in many years, Okoye cried like a child. The 5 years of marriage came and Adora still couldn't conceive. Okoye and Adora had done everything: prayers, fasting, herbal mixtures, yet nothing worked. So they turned to IVF. The first trial failed. The second trial failed again. By the fourth trial, Adora broke down in the hospital hallway. She screamed and wept like someone who lost a child, even though she never had one. Okoye held her tightly, but his arm felt useless. He wanted to say, "It's going to be okay," but the words died in his throat. Deep inside, he knew why nothing was working. The seed had been traded. The womb was locked, not by nature, but by darkness. At home, Adora barely spoke anymore. Her smiles were gone. Her eyes were dull. But she stayed, not because of love, not because of hope. She stayed because of the money. She wore gold, drove expensive cars, attended events with bodyguards. On Instagram, she was a queen, but behind the screens, she was empty. One day, Amadi came to visit. He looked around the house, saw the baby's toys stacked in the corner untouched, dusty, and signed. "You finally know," Amadi said, sitting down. Okoye didn't say a word. Amadi shook his head slowly. "You think your own is bad? My punishment is worse." He paused, looking tired like a man fighting with his own soul. "I was told I must sleep with 1,000 women every month. If I stop, I lose everything. I get sick. I die poor." Okoye's eyes widened. 1,000? How? Amadi laughed bitterly. "It's not about desire. It's punishment. Most nights I didn't sleep. I don't even enjoy it anymore. I cry after every encounter, but I have no choice." He looked into Okoye's eyes. "You gave up your future children. I gave up my peace. The devil gives you, but it takes more than he gives." Okoye's hand shook. He remembered how he used to pray as a child, how his mother would place her hands on his head and say, "You will be a great father someday." But now, there would be no child to carry his name, no baby to call him daddy, only wealth, only silence. And deep in that silence was regret. Back in the house, Adora sat alone in their king-size bed, scrolling through baby pictures online. She touched her stomach, wishing it could grow, but she knew it would never. Still, she stayed, because in the world she lived in, money was louder than pain. One afternoon, her old school friend Ngozi came visiting. "My sister," Ngozi said after Adora shared her pain, "you have tried hospitals and IVF. Have you tried God?" Adora looked at her blankly. "We pray." "No," Ngozi interrupted. "Not just prayer. I mean real deliverance." She took Adora to a small prayer house. A gentle pastor welcomed them. He prayed, lay hands on Adora, then paused, eyes closed, as if listening to something beyond the room. After a long silence, he said softly, "Your womb is not the problem. Your husband had made a covenant. He has exchanged the sound of your child's cry for wealth. No fruit, can grow from such soil. Adora broke down in tears. The revelation from the pastor hit Adora like a thunderbolt. She returned home that day with red eyes and shaky hands. Okoye was sitting alone in the living room, sipping juice, when she walked in. "I went to a pastor today," she said softly. He looked up. "He told me everything about you, about the covenant, about the price you paid for this wealth." Okoye said nothing. His shoulders dropped. The weight of truth had finally caught up with him. Tears rolled down Adora's cheek as she stood before him. "You gave away our future for gold and glory." "I was desperate," Okoye whispered, his voice cracked with regret. "I don't want to die poor. I don't want to go back to begging." She turned her face away. She wanted to scream, to slap him, to run away, but she didn't. She looked around the room, the marble floors, the gold curtains, the designer shoes, the silence. She had eaten the fruit of luxury, and it was sweet. She sat beside him and said quietly, "I can't leave, Okoye. I won't lie. I love this life too much." They sat in silence for a long time, husband and wife, tied together by secret and sin. Then she lifted her head and whispered, "But what if we find another way?" Okoye turned to her. "The covenant is with your seed, right?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Then what if we use another man's seed? What if we try IVF again, but this time with a semen donor?" Okoye blinked. "A child that is not mine?" Adora held his hand. "A child that is alive is better than a covenant that kills." He said nothing for a moment. Then he nodded. They found a district fertility clinic. No names, no noise, just a private donor and a second chance. The procedure was done. This time, it worked. Adora was pregnant. Their mansion was filled with joy. She glowed with happiness. Okoye smiled again, even laughed. The servants danced. Adora decorated the baby's room with soft blue clouds and golden stars. For their first time in years, there was laughter in the house. Hope had returned. The pain of past seemed far behind. They believed they had beaten the devil. They believed they had broken the curse. 9 months passed like a dream. Adora's stomach grew, and so did their excitement. They were careful with everything. The best doctors, the best care, the best prayers money could buy. And finally, the baby arrived. A baby boy, chubby, beautiful, full of life. They named him Zikora. For the first time, Adora and Okoye heard the sound they longed for, the cry of a child in their home. But it didn't last. On the second night, the crying stopped permanently. Zikora was found cold in his crib. No signs of sickness, no warning, just gone. Adora screamed until her voice disappeared. Okoye held the lifeless baby in his hands, shaking, begging, weeping like a madman. They buried the child quietly. No one outside the mansion knew the truth. Okoye drove to the court temple that same night, eyes red with rage. He pushed through the dark corridor until he stood face to face with the robed occult leader. "Why?" Okoye shouted. He wasn't mine. He wasn't my seed. Why did he die? The man smiled behind his mask. You forget too quickly, he said calmly. When you poured your blood into that clay pot, you didn't say my children. You said I give up my offsprings. It doesn't matter where the seed came from. If it lives under your name, it dies under my rules. Okoye collapsed on his knees. His heart shattered into pieces. Back home, Adora said nothing. She simply packed her things and walked out of the house. This time, there was no hesitation. Not even the gold could hold her back now. She left without goodbye. Okoye was alone. He stopped eating, stopped going to work. He lay on the floor of the baby nursery for days, holding the blanket Zukora had used. Then one night, he opened the Bible he hadn't touched in years. He cried like a child. God, if you can hear me, help me. I don't want to die without a seed. I am my father's only son. My name must not disappear. He started attending church quietly, sitting at the back, hiding behind the dark glasses. One evening, after midweek service, an elderly woman approached him. She touched his shoulder gently and said, Son, you want something from God, but you are still holding the devil's gift. You can't drink from two cups. If you truly want healing, you must let go of what the devil gave you. She walked away before he could speak. That night, Okoye couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in his mind like a beating drum. He stood by his bedroom window and stared at his mansion, his cars, his empire. He remembered the night he went to bed hungry. He remembered the rejection, the shame. He had tasted poverty and he had tasted luxury. Luxury tasted sweet. How would he survive if he lose all this? What would his friends say? What about his old boss? What would the world say about Okoye, the great, now begging in the street? He wiped his tears and whispered to himself, it is better to die rich than to die poor. This is my cross. I will carry it with tears and regrets. Okoye sat in the dark corner of the warehouse, the air heavy with dust and regret. The door burst open and two masked men shoved Chief Nnamani inside. Chief stumbled to his feet, breathing heavily, confusion and fear in his eyes. Okoye, what is this? Why am I here? Okoye rose slowly. His face was pale, his eyes wet with anger. You want to know why? His voice shook. You ruined my life. You gave me blood money. You tied my soul to the devil. Because of you, I will die without a child. Because of you, I cannot sleep at night. Chief hands trembled. Okoye, listen to me. I may have walked a dark path, but I never forced you to follow. You chose it yourself. Those words stabbed deeper than any knife. Okoye's hand shook as he pulled a pistol from his coat. Years of pain, humiliation, and empty nights boiled over. You destroyed me, he cried, and with a trembling hand, he fired. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Chif's body fell lifeless to the ground. Okoye froze, the smell of gunpowder and blood hanging heavy in the air. His chest heavy. For a moment, he thought he would feel relief, but instead, A crushing emptiness swallowed him. He left Lagos before sunrise, driving through the night until he reached his dusty village. His parents, aged and frail, were shocked to see him. Okoye poured out everything, from the day he joined the cult, to the price he had paid, to the blood now on his hands. His mother's eyes filled with tears. She held his hands, her voice trembling. "My son, it's not too late. Come with me to see a pastor. Jesus can save you." But Okoye pulled away, his eyes dead. "Mama, I can't. I have tasted poverty before, and I swore I would never go back. Jesus cannot give me the life I have now, and without this wealth, I am nothing." His father lowered his head in silence. His mother sobbed. In their hearts, they knew they were losing their son, not to death yet, but to the chains of darkness. 3 days later, the sound of police siren echoed through the village. The news had spread. Chief Nnamani was dead, and the trail led straight to Okoye. The police truck stopped in front of his family compound. Armed men jumped out. Okoye stepped out of the house slowly, his pistol hidden in his pocket. He could see the fear in his mother's eyes, the disappointment in his father's face. One of the police shouted, "Okoye, drop your weapon and surrender." He looked at them, then at his parents. Tears rolled down his cheek. "Mama, I'm sorry. I cannot go to prison. I cannot face the shame." Before anyone could move, he raised the gun to his head. "Tell my sisters to never choose this path." A single gunshot rang out. His mother's scream tore through the air. His father collapsed to the ground, clenching his chest. The policeman froze for a moment before slowly stepping forward. Okoye's lifeless body lay on the ground. His expensive wristwatch still gleaming in the sun, a cruel reminder of the words that had cost him everything. That day, the village mourned. Some shook their heads in pity, others whispered in fear. The truth was clear. The devil had given him riches and collected his soul, his future, and finally, his life. When you take what is not from God, it will take more from you than you can ever imagine. Lessons from the story. This story teaches us that the devil's gifts are never free. They come wrapped in glitter, but hide chains that will shook the life out of you. It shows that wealth without peace is a curse, and shortcuts to success often lead straight into bondage. It reminds us that when you sacrifice your values for riches, the price will be collected in the most painful currency: your joy, your loved ones, or your soul. True prosperity is not in the abundance of possessions, but in the presence of peace, love, and clean conscience. It reminds us that sin will always take you further than you plan to go, keep you longer than you intended to stay, and cost you more than you ever imagined to pay. In the end, true wealth is not measured by what is in your bank account, but by what is in your heart when you stand before God. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and also click the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming story. Feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Your support means everything to me. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and keep enjoying great stories from me to you. I love you all. God bless you.